Hello YouTube and welcome back to Old Maryland 63 C10. This is episode 24 in our build process. And in this episode we are going to hopefully finish up the toe kick and the floor on the driver's side, as well as repairing the lip where the seal will go and the door jamb. So stick around and we'll see if we can get that all done in this episode. All right, let's first take a look at the areas we're going to repair and catch up a little bit on what we did last episode. So in the last episode, I basically repaired this outer part of the floor and the main part of the floor up through here that was just all rusted on the truck. The AMD panel goes up to where it meets the toe kick, and we got this all finished. Still need some final grinding on my welds. A few other places still need to be filled in, and I made this extra patch here to fill this spot. So I've traced basically an outline of where I'm going to remove these panels to get the most pitted pieces out. Obviously this thing's got a hole in it here, so that's going. I'm going to come down here off of this and then take this part of the floor out down here where there's some pinholes in here. So I put the string on here just to be able to kind of get a visual eye on this seam that runs across here. So the AMD panel, when it gets to this corner, is pretty much right on the string. But you can see there's daylight on this side of the panel. Now the lip's not quite bent the way it should be, but that's a no big deal. So I'm gonna have to repair this panel a little bit. I'll probably end up slicing it like right about here where my welds stop. I'll probably slice it and bring it up along here, bend this up, and just have to put a little wedge in there to kind of just readjust that panel. I think I'm going to take this top panel first, and let me go outside the truck and so you can see why I think this would be the best bet. I'm going to cut this across here, and the reason why I'm going to start at the top is I'm going to keep this part of the floor that's left and this little corner of the floor that's left over here. So when I make this panel, I'll use this point and this point to make my straight line to basically mimic where the string is. Then I'll make this patch over here, bend it, fit it to match the straight line that's going to go across here. Then I can cut the AMD floor, bend the angle up, and again, match it to the line established here. So that's why I'm going to start with the top in order to create that straight line and basically fit everything else, the patch and the AMD thing, to that line. And of course, the other part I'm going to be working on is the inside part of this, the outer rocker right here, where this seal, right here, where the door seal will sit, fill in this patch here. And actually this part of the door jamb here, this is all rust holes in here. So I'll probably take this part of the rocker out down to here and remove that and replace that. So let's take a quick look at our patch panels or the metal we're going to try to use to make all of this. I was able to cut this out of the parts truck. That's going to be that back lip there. This is part of the floor out of the parts truck, and again, it's got this body line in it that we're going to use in order to make that seam, in order to make that patch fit to the top part of the panel. And then this is all I have left of that one rocker I bought from AMD. So we're going to use this top lip here to basically fill in all that part of the outer rocker panel. So we're going to start cutting and cut out that top piece on the truck and hopefully turn this into a patch panel. So tonight I do have a couple extra helpers with me. Hopefully they're not going to cause too much problem, but I got a little bit of extra company tonight. Hey, Sadie and Bella. Okay, for these spot welds, I think I'm going to try to use my cutoff wheel because I can't get my drill in a good angle to hit these because they're tucked right up against the lip of the floor. So I think I'm going to try to use the wheel and just kind of gently scrape across the top of each one. There's one over here that I might be able to miss. I got one here that I've got through with my drill, but these in the corner here, kind of the same thing. This one I might be able to get, but there's no way the drill will get at an angle here. So we're going to try the wheel and see how that works out. this piece almost out. This side is clearly loose. I had to kind of messed that little lip up there a little bit. These spot welds were a little bit of a challenge to get out, so things got a little warped. I did find some more rust as usual when you start digging into things. Some rust right in this lip here, so I might try to replace that while I'm in here. And right now I'm working on this edge over here. Again, I'm trying to leave the inside piece, but I cut a little too far through. Okay, this lip underneath of here is just, it's just too rusted. I can't really kind of pry on it to try to separate the two. So I think we're just gonna get down to the wiggle. The wiggle until it breaks free. So I saved enough of this point here. I need to straighten this lip out over here where the patch came off. And then I'll be able to connect my patch panel here to here and get a straight edge to then be able to line up this panel and replace the one on the inside. So this is okay. It wasn't perfect, wasn't exactly what I was going for, but what I'll do is be able to pry what's left of it off here and still be able to make this angle and this lip in my patch panel. So that's next. Okay, to try to make this bend in the patch panel, to make this here, I've already kind of bent this lip around here. Just use the edge of the table basically as a straight edge, and want to try to bend this down to be able to get this angle. The only thing I'm worried about with this one, the other one went fine, but I was able to lay it flat on this side. In order to bend this one down, the body line is pressing against the table, so it's not quite as firm as I'd like it. But we'll see if we can get this to bend over and hopefully be on our way. It's close. It's not perfect. I don't know that I really envisioned it being close or being perfect, but for what we're doing under the cab, I think I might be okay. I'm gonna try to tune it up a little bit, but I think I'm gonna be kind of okay with that. I got this piece roughed in pretty close. So now we're just gonna start fitting. So get this up here. I'm gonna use this body line here to kind of start to get everything to fall into place. So what I did was I went inside, I pinched it, held it here, held it tight with a pair of clamps, went inside and traced around the inside, and I got to remove most of that. So I'm going to go over to the bench, use the cutoff wheel to get it close, again staying on the outside of the line, and then I'll come back over and start fitting it into the panel here close to the truck. So let's go cut that off and we'll be right back. So it's fitting pretty good. From the inside, I can see a little bit of a gap. So I went in and just did another scribe. And we just got to nip a little bit off this corner here and basically bring this line down across to here. So we'll hopefully be able to just kind of whittle that down a little bit and be ready to go. Okay, that's getting pretty close. Just need to do some adjustment on the inner floor to get it to fit a little better. I think we're looking pretty good in here. That could tuck up maybe a little bit more, but that's obviously fitting inside of there. This might be a little tight right there where this seam is, and a little bit here. But I think we're pretty close. We're gonna bend this lip up and probably have to start fixing this little inside where I found a little bit more rust and just do some final adjustment. But I think we're being pretty close with this panel. It's up pretty good here. I'll be able to push this up a little bit to get this line right. Same back here. I'm gonna add back a little piece in here. I mean, I probably don't have to, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. While we're fixing this piece, I'm not gonna leave that big of a space there. So I'll just take a little piece and weld that in. And I bent this corner up here. Still a little tall right here, but I made a line there. So I just gotta cut off that little bit to be able to, match this lip that comes down here. So just a few more adjustments like that, and then we will get this piece welded in. I've drilled my holes for the spot welds, coated the places with weld through primer on the lip here and on the floor. Not worried about this spot here because this is coming out. So welded in an extra little piece to extend this over to make this fit a little tighter over here in this corner. I'll show you when I move around with the camera. This lip over here is very close. Might need a little bit of a buildup of weld to smooth it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get it in place here. And I'll adjust it a little bit before I start welding, but I'm going to put a tack weld in here, then come back over to this side and then just get this corner here, and then go inside and start putting patch panel clamps to hold the two, the original part and the patch flush, and then just tack it in there. So let's get started and do some welding and get this tacked in. This piece is tacked in. This edge isn't as nice as I liked, and I tried to whack it around a little bit. And then I remembered this is actually under the carpet or the firewall. So while again, I do want it to be right, I don't have to get too obsessive with trying to get these body lines to line up, but they're pretty close. So this one's just tacked in. You can see I got a lot of spots left to weld. I just ground these down to get us close. So the next thing is going to be removing this little shape right here. And it's already loose from up here, obviously, and through here. So I just got to make this cut, and there might be a spot weld right there with the lower cabinet. Actually, it might be right here. So we're going to get started on cutting this out and get this next piece bent and in place. So I got this piece cut out of the floor, and as I was walking and looking through my scrap pieces of metal, from the pieces I got from AMD to the cab corners, I was trying to look and see if I had anything that matched this curve right here. And of all things, a piece of scrap from the floor of my parts truck is pretty close. This curve on the floor kind of comes down and then bends down this way a little bit. So it's not exact, but it's pretty close. So I went ahead and cleaned up a piece of the floor and cut this piece out, which again comes pretty close to this. It's again, it's something I can work with at least to get close. And if we go over to the truck, it fits pretty good, at least as far as this bend here, at least to start with, and where it bends down here. So again, we're pretty close. So what I need to do is I need to trim along here a little bit and cut this point off to get this to fit a little better, and then I can work on making the bend at the top here and maybe working on this curve a little bit to match this body line a little bit better. But got this pretty much fitted the way I wanted. I started with trying to work the edges in, and then just made marks here and here to bend the lip over. And of course, once I bent the lip over, um, then I had to come back and kind of rework these angles a little more because it kind of pushed everything down. But either way, I think we're pretty close. I've got this point here on the patch, the original patch, C-clamped to hold it in place. I've got this patch clamped, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tack weld here and probably a tack weld over here, drill 2 holes for spot welds, and then I'll be able to push this corner, because this is still sitting a little proud. I'll be able to push that down a little bit to get these curves to match up, because again, this floor kind of comes down and bows down a little bit, so it needs a little bit more working. But I think we're pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and start tack welding this in place and see how it goes. This patch is tacked into place, again, just like the upper one here. I didn't finish all my welds because we're still kind of manipulating this floor around. And in case I got to do a fix, you know, won't be completely welded in. So it's been there pretty good. Again, this is under the carpet. Not that I want to do a bad job, but it is going to be under the carpet or the floor mat. So the next thing I'm going to tackle is this line right across here. And this is where the AMD panel doesn't match up really good to my straight line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a pie cut right along where this silver line is, and then pull the floor up to the toe kick, tack weld that in place, and then come back and put a little filler strip in. All right, so I think I pretty much got the toe kick area all complete. So I put this little wedge in here, got this line with the patch panel up to my other patch. It gets a little gappy here, but as you can see, the factory did seam sealer on the inside of the cab, and I plan to do the same thing. So we'll run seam sealer through here and probably underneath, and it'll kind of fill that gap in a little bit. So obviously still need to do a bunch more welding and grinding, but again, it's pretty much all locked in. So this part of the floor is, again, outside of doing the welding and grinding, is done. So now we're ready to start working on the outer rocker where the seal's going to go and this corner over here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start back here in this corner, get this part out, use the piece off of my parts truck, and start from there. So we're making progress. We're moving along. So let's start working on this back corner and get that wrapped up. The first thing I'm going to do is take a measurement from the inside of the floor here to this edge here. And I'm going to even go from here to this inside lip here, because once this goes away, there's going to be nothing, you know, this to keep this straight besides the back part of the B pillar right here. So I just want to kind of keep it straight because, again, it's got to eventually connect up here to the front. So just from the inside to that edge there is 5/8 of an inch. So we're going to make that note. And then from here to the inside of the lip at the top right here is 4.5. So the next thing we want to do is take our disc and find the spot welds. I mean, I can see one here and one there. And then there's one in here, it looks like. And I don't know what else is going to be holding it down here because this is pretty rusty. So we'll just knock this off first so we can find the spot welds. Okay, so it looks like there's one here, there's one out here, but I think I'm going to miss that one because my piece isn't quite that wide. So, and then there's one in here, it looks like, and one in here, which makes sense for what's left of my patch panel piece. So let's get our spot weld colors and drill and start knocking those spot welds out. I got these two spot welds pretty much out. This one's close. I don't want to go too far in and risk really messing this up too bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out inside here and just get this corner out of the way because I want to be able to cut this with the patch sitting all the way in against this inside metal. So we're going to take a small piece first and then come back and fit this and then scribe a line to be able to cut that out. Okay, so we took the wire wheel and the grinder and flattened out these spot welds, flattened out spot welds on here and just kind of clean the metal up a little bit. I want to get that lip even with the existing one, clamp it in, and then just double check my 4.5, and that's right about there. Okay, so just as always, we're going to cut, in this case, on the inside of the line to leave some metal here so I can work it back or work that to the cut. So next part is cutting out that piece and getting that one put in. the back piece all the way welded in. I actually did weld this one all the way in because it fought me a little bit. Didn't fit exactly the way that I wanted, but we pretty much got this in. So I went and cut out hopefully what will be the last piece of the driver's side here, and it's basically this lip that'll sit under the seal and the trim piece that goes here. So I cut it the length, so it's good here. So it fits there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slide it underneath this lip and try to keep this side even and this side even, and just run a mark along here. And then we'll cut the rest of this off on this side of the line so then we can trim it back. I will say that this might be the first part that doesn't fit as well as I'd like. You can see, well, I don't know if you can see on camera, but I'll get a better shot as I trim it. This lip on the AMD panel is a little bit shorter than the original. The other thing I think I might be fighting on here is when I cut this piece out, this part of the rocker really bowed up here. It's got a pretty big crown in it. So that might fight me trying to get that back in, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and trim this off, and then we'll come back and start fitting it to the rocker. So I trimmed this lip down to get it to fit into the patch. So here's where I was talking about where this is a little off. So you can see this bend is good from here to here, but then it's about I'll say maybe a 1/4 inch short of the original bend. So I'm not sure if I'll try to bring that up a little bit or try to repair it or adapt it. And this back piece is sitting up high here. It's going to go down a little bit. So at the same time, it's underneath of the sill and it's underneath of the seal. So, you know, I don't know if I'm going to worry about it too much. So I did take this clamp and kind of clamp the rocker together a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack this corner and tack it in here, and then use the clamp to pull the outer rocker down even with it, keep kind of tacking along, and then drill the holes up inside here for the spot welds, and then tack it to the inner floor. So I think that's how I'm going to go about this. So let's go ahead and get the welder going, and we'll get this one tacked in. Got this piece tacked the rest of the way in, just like I did the other ones. As you could see when I was doing the video, as I was working along this line, I guess the metal was contracting. One day I'll figure out how heat impacts all these patch panels when I put them in. So I had to use my cutoff wheel to keep cutting this seam a little bit wider each time to be able to not only get the gap for the weld to penetrate, but also to keep this corner here aligned. So that wraps up the last patch for the driver's side floor. I still have to do the finished welding on the toe kick up there, as well as the patch down here. So I got to do a couple more holes for spot welds and clean up some more back here. So in the next episode, I'm going to stay on the driver's side and fix the area above the windshield. I got pinholes through there. So that's going to take removing the windshield out of our parts truck, cutting a patch panel out of that, and getting this side fixed. So I just figured I'd stay on the driver's side before moving to the passenger side. So that'll be the next time on Old Maryland 63 C10. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.